Hi, and welcome to part 3 of the Pointsense for Revit tutorial series. In this video, what we're going to look at, firstly, is importing scans into VirtuSurv and linking the VirtuSurv project with Revit. We're then going to look at inserting levels and using the auto level feature. We're going to look at using the wall and wall thickness commands, inserting columns and beams, inserting windows, doors and openings, and then inserting model lines and construction points. So when we open up VirtuSurv, we'll be presented with a welcome screen. The first thing we're going to do is create a new project. We can select the directory, which will default to My Documents, and we're going to give it a name. So in this case I'm going to call this Example, and I'm going to click Create. You'll see that's now appeared in the Project Explorer. If I go to File and Import Scans, the import box appears, and we can browse to a location where we have some scans saved that we want to import. These particular scans are in FLS format, directly out of Scene. However, you can also import other format types, as you can see in the drop down list here. So I'm just going to select these scans, these first two, for the purpose of this video, and just import these. It will just take a couple of seconds to load those in. Now you can see we can set the scan units. I know it's defaulting to meters when I export from Scene, and I can also sample the points if I want to reduce the density of what I'm importing. If I just select one of those scans and click the scan orientation box to generate a preview, this will open up, and I can set a new center line if I want to change the center of this scan. For example, how this is going to change how it will be displayed when we actually open this up in VirtuSurv. You'll notice as well here we have a executed operations box, and we can undo those last operations to take it back to how it was at the start. We can also add a new center point of this scan in the 360, which is obviously going to change the display. We can just undo that. Also, sometimes we'll have an issue with scans coming in a different way around, so if I wanted to flip these, say 180, I can do that. Just type in the angle we want to change this to. And we can, if we want to, apply these features to all of the scans in a batch operation. I'm just going to cancel that, and I'm just going to click OK to import these scans. Now I will point out that these progress bars have been speeded up for the purposes of this video. This process will probably take a good 4 or 5 minutes. Okay, now that they're imported, in the Project Explorer I now have 2 scans which I can click on and open up, and we can view a planar type view of these coloured scans. Just into the next one, and to the bottom left we also have the positions of those scans within the VirtuSurv project itself. Obviously we only have 2 in there now, so it's only 2 scans showing. I'm now going to go into measure mode, and I'm going to configure the measurement units that we're going to use to make sure that this matches with our Revit project. So I know my Revit project is in millimeters, so I changed that there, and you can see in the preview how that's going to display, so that's okay. I'm then going to turn the Revit features on, the Revit toolbar. As you can see, these are going to come in on the right hand side as a toolbar. And if we just go and open up Revit now, the next thing I'm going to do is link this point cloud to the VirtuSurv project. So I go to Coordinates, Link PC Coordinates, select this tool, and then I'm just going to literally select that point cloud, and that is going to join the VirtuSurv project to the Revit project. So obviously the first thing we want to do is validate that link and check how accurately it has been undertaken. So a good way to do this would be to firstly drop a construction point in VirtuSurv. If we just drop that in the VirtuSurv project, we go back now and we open up the Revit window. If I just navigate to the position that I know this is in, I can just double check to make sure that that point's gone in the right place, and you can see there it looks like it has. So it looks like we've got a good accurate link here. So the next thing we're going to do to validate the link, but also to give us a better understanding of where each scan in the VirtuSurv project sits within the Revit project, is to bring our scan positions in. So I'm just going to go to Site within the project browser. Now we can see these white circles already define the positions where each of the scans were taken, as they're the blind spots beneath the scanner. So what we're going to do is we're going to go into VirtuSurv, and I'm going to right click on the example, project name, and I'm going to go Export Scan Positions. I'm just going to navigate to a place I want to save this file, and I'm going to give it a file name, and this is just a text document. So if we call it Scan Positions or Scan Locations and we press Save, we get a dialog box to say that's complete. If I go back into Revit now and I go into Coordinates again, import Scan Positions, navigate to this Scan Locations text file and open it, this is now going to bring in markers to give us an idea of which scan sits in which position in the VirtuSurv project. You can see that there, and that's just a typical Revit family that's been imported. So I've just brought two in for now. I'll go out now and import the rest of these scans in to the project and the scan positions, and we can pick up with some of the VirtuSurv tools. So we're now going to be looking at some of the VirtuSurv tools which can be used directly within Revit or can be used from the VirtuSurv toolbar, and specifically we're going to look at using the level command. So if I click on level here now, I can zoom in and I can drop a level in as a picked point at the bottom of this wall, and I can also go and find an area just beneath this cornice at the top of the wall. If I scroll along now and go into my Revit interface, you'll notice if I just press the escape key to come out with the command, there's two floors now being added into my project browser. If I go and have a quick look at these, so let's look at floor 9. So floor 9 seems to be the higher selection that I made, the top of the wall, and floor 10 seems to be at the base of the wall. So now we've had a check of those, what we can do is we can go in to the project browser and we can actually rename those to reflect the actual locations within the project. So we'll just right click on that there and rename it. We can call this one base of wall. Okay, and we'll just do the same with floor 9. Brilliant. There we are. If we just quickly scroll out of there now, back into 3D view. Now this level command does also work within the 3D view itself, so we can make 3D selections. So if I just use the same tool from the VirtuSurv toolbar in this 3D view, I could zoom in on this wall here and select a point, and exactly the same as before, you can see now floor 11 has been added, and we can rename that and we could call that top of tower wall. So we can use these tools in VirtuSurv or in Revit. Okay, so that's the basic levels. When we're using the wall and column commands, however, there is an auto level feature. Now the auto level feature works by automatically snapping the base and top of the wall to the nearest level of the selection that you make in VirtuSurv. If I turn that off and just drop that to a nominal value, we would need to then set the top and bottom constraints of the wall that we were going to put in. So there's a difference in the way you can actually select the levels. Auto level does work very well, however I would avoid using this if you have quite a large number of levels in your project, as you can end up with walls snapping to areas or levels that you didn't intend. So we're going to go and insert a wall now, and from the types list I'm just going to select a nominal wall type, this example. From point cloud mode I'm going to be using the standard raw point cloud picking. We do also have intersect the point ray with the plane, and also perpendicular projection of the point cloud point to the plane. It'll be worth looking in the help menu to understand these a little bit better. We're going to use a straight wall, and I'm going to have auto level on, and we're just going to make 2 selections on this wall surface. And if we go and have a look in Revit, you can see that's use the auto level to snap to the 2 closest levels from those selections that I made in VirtuSurv. So if we just go back and do that again on this other wall, but first what we'll do is we'll add another level in halfway up, and we'll just go into Revit and give this another name. Possibly we'll call this external wall mid-level. We'll rename that. So if we do exactly the same application again now, use the same type, it's just asking us to switch the active view in Revit. If we just use that insert another wall here using the auto mode again, you'll notice that we end up with a slightly different result. So I'm inserting a straight wall here with 2 selections. Go back into Revit to have a look at our result, and obviously because I've now added that extra level in, the result that we get has a slightly different height because it's snapping to the nearest levels in the Revit project. So we've done exactly the same process, however we've ended up with 2 walls with a slightly different height. So if I just hide off the point cloud there, you can see that. So if we wanted to now, obviously we could just go and select this wall and change it to its proper top of wall level to give it its proper height. So you can see here on this plan all the different scan locations, but if we just go to site in our Revit project and have a bit of a look at the names of some of these scans, if we want to create a wall thickness of this wall, we're going to need to open up one of the scans in the view, which is externals 14. So if I go and look at externals 14 in VirtuSurv, here's the view that we get, and now we can see the back side of these walls. So just dropping into Revit again, if I go up to the VirtuSurv tools and select wall thickness, again using standard raw point cloud picking, I'm just going to now select 2 points on that wall, and that's going to find the wall that's nearest to it in the project, and you can now see that's changed that wall thickness of the thickness of the wall that we inserted. So I'll just select that. You can see it's a little bit thicker than it was before. We'll go and do the same for the other wall. And just select those points and go back into Revit. There we are. So if we just zoom in a little bit, and possibly if I just cut a section through this so we can have a good look at it. And I'll just change the scale so that we can have a closer examination of the wall. But there we are. You can see that that's fitting the geometry of the wall itself quite well. If we maybe open this up in a 3D view and just orientate the view to that section, if we just maybe just navigate around a little bit, just orientate around this a little bit, you can see now we've got a well-fitting wall inside that point cloud geometry. So one other feature we have is the ability to put in a continuous wall. So just back on the site plan here, if we go and find another area to look at, and I'm going to open up this rear area ground 17 scan in VirtuSurv. So just navigate to that in the Project Explorer. There is the occasions where you might not have a scan inside the building there to determine the wall thickness of this wall. So in this particular instance, I'm just going to drop 2 levels in, one at the bottom of the wall and one at the top of the wall, and we're going to go into Revit and actually we're going to rename these so that we can accurately put this wall in. So floor 14 is going to be our base of wall, or base of garage wall we'll call this one, and floor 13 would be our top of garage wall. As I've got quite a few intermediate levels now in the project, it's probably worth naming those and when we insert this wall, we're actually going to turn the auto level off, I think, in this instance. So yeah, there we are. Just turn off the auto level. I'll just select a wall from here. So this looks like it's a solid wall, solid brickwork wall, some headers in the wall there. So we just select that wall type and turn off the auto level and select the particular levels we want the top and bottom to snap to. We're then going to use this click several points to create a continuous wall command. There is also a curved wall command, but we're not going to use that. We're now going to click on each wall that we're going to, the start and end of each wall that we're going to insert, and it's going to automatically join these together. So we'll just work our way around here with the click at the start and end of each wall. There we are, and if we're happy with that, we then drop back into Revit to have a look. Just come out with the command, and you can see, there we are, that wall's come in, and it is snapped to the levels that we selected, and it's also in the correct location. Okay, so we're going to have a look at putting some columns and beams into this project now. So the first thing I'm going to do is just set some new levels, which is going to be the ground floor of this internal space, and also I'm going to use the ceiling as a level. I'm then just going to come into the project and just rename these levels I've just created so that we know what we're dealing with when we're in VirtuSurv, looking at a list of levels. So we'll rename those. So it's rear ground level and also rear ground ceiling level. Okay, once that's done, we are just going to open that up, and what I'm actually going to do is just so we can see what we're doing. You don't always have to do this, but this is just so we can visualize what's going into the project. I'm just going to open up that rear ground floor, and I'm just going to crop the view down so we can actually focus on the area we're dealing with. And here's that rear area ground 1 scan that we're looking at in VirtuSurv, so I'll highlight a little window around there. I'm actually also going to just bring the view range up on this plan, because what we're going to do now is we're actually going to go and measure manually the size of this column, because one thing that the insert column and beam commands don't do is measure the actual dimensions of the column. You do need to know those. We're just going to insert it in a specific location. So I'm just going to use a reference plane quickly to give me a size of the square column. Just use a reference plane and a dimension. We're looking at about a 250mm square column, I would say. So once we know that, we can go and create a new type. First, I'll just orientate to a 3D view of this floor plan so that we get a good visualization of what we do in VirtuSurv. Just rotate that around slightly. Just drag these extents up a little bit just to get a good sight of the column we're going to be looking at. There we are. Okay, now that we know the size of the column, we can go and create a new version or a new type of that architectural column. So we're going to rename this 250 by 250mm column, and we're then going to obviously change the depth and the width to match. Okay, so now we can just go into VirtuSurv and we can go and select the column command. I'm going to be using the with the auto level off. We're just going to first select the type. I'm going to turn auto level off there, and we're just going to select the top and bottom levels that we just created for these families that are going to be going in here. And we're going to use the click 3 points to define the insertion point by a rectangle command. So then we just select 3 points on the column face, and you can see now that column has just been dropped into the Revit project in the correct place and also with the correct levels. So this time we're going to look at inserting a beam. So I'm going to move across to rear area ground 3, and you can see we've got this beam spanning across the ceiling here. I've took the liberty of already setting up some views for this so we can visualize what we're looking at. So in the 3D view here, if we navigate around, you can see where the beam should be going. So if we just drop back into VirtuSurv now and we zoom in a little bit and access the beam command, I have already taken the liberty again of measuring this beam and creating a family for it. But what we're going to do now is we're going to use either the click 4 points to insert a line-based structural family instance in 3D, or we can use a similar command which will do it in a horizontal plane. So if we use the 3D command, the first thing we're going to do is one click to start the first plane and the end of that plane, and then if we just click the underside of the beam to select this start and end of this plane, there we are. And if we drop back into Revit now, you can see that beam family has been dropped in and it's in the 3D plane. So essentially it's not fixed to a horizontal plane, it will have variations in the Z value at the start and end potentially. So moving on to inserting windows, doors and openings now. We've gone back to the garage area that we inserted the wall in previously in Revit and VirtuSurv, and I'm just going to go and look at the door tool. So from our type selection we can just select any single door. I'm not really too concerned about the size. If we want to insert a bespoke size element, we do need to take this create new family type icon, and we have two ways to insert this. We can use two diagonal points to insert it as a rectangle, or if we're going to use the reveals of say a window from an internal perspective, we can couple that with some of these point selection modes to do that via say the reveals internally. But we're going to use the two diagonal points and the standard raw point cloud picking, and I'm going to select a point at the bottom and the top corner of the door. If we go now through to Revit, you can see that has dropped a door in the correct position in that wall in Revit. See that there. So obviously we can do these same tools, we can use these same tools in Revit itself. We don't have to use VirtuSurv. So if we just drop into a 3D view of the section facing this particular garage wall, and I'm just going to crop this down so we can get a good view of it. We can also insert a window, for example, using point cloud picking in the Revit interface itself. So just to go and hide off this wall now, just so we can get a better view of the point cloud, and zoom in a little bit here. I'm just going to then go up to the VirtuSurv tools and select the window command, and very similar to the door command, I'm going to select just a single plane window. I need to create a new family type, and I'm going to use two diagonal points. So I'm going to select one at the bottom corner of this window, and I'm just going to navigate slightly around to get under the soffit here and select the best point I can in the 3D view at the top right corner. And as you can see, that has just dropped in a new window into that wall. Obviously I can go now and bring the actual wall itself back in from the reveal hidden elements tool. And if I just hide off the point cloud, you'll be able to see that a bit clearer. So there we are, there's our window and door, which are sized correctly. So because we had create new family type ticked, you can see in the properties dialog we actually have a new type of that particular family created. It's been renamed and now reflects the height and width measurements of the selections that were made. Okay, so if we just take a quick look at the opening tool, it works in a very similar way. However, we don't actually have to use a particular family or create a new family type. We're just going to use a diagonal selection in either VirtuSurv or Revit. Two selections, and there we are. You can see an opening's been created in that particular wall there, and it's a proper Revit opening, so it will be schedulable. So we're just going to take a look at the model line commands now. I'll just open those up in the VirtuSurv tool. So we have the 3D model line. We have a model line that's fixed in a horizontal plane. We also have a model line that's fixed in the vertical plane and a model curve, which we can create by 3 points. So we'll have a look at these now. We'll just go and find an area that we want to work with. So if I just drop into my site plan again, just to look at where these scan positions were. So if we say externals 12 is our scan we're going to use, so we can navigate to that in the VirtuSurv view. And we're going to zoom in on this sign. Now what we're going to look at now is the horizontal tool first. So if we open up the model line command, which we can do in Revit or in the VirtuSurv view, you'll notice that when we select some points with the horizontal model line, it will average the Z value to give us a nice clean horizontal line. So if I just take 2 picks here along this mortar course here, and if I just do a similar application just below this and we take 2 different picks, what it'll do is it'll average that line along the, average the Z value between those 2 points to give us a straight line in a horizontal plane. So you can see we've got a very similar result from 2 very different selections there. So let's delete those off. So if we want to go and do create a model line outline of this sign, just clear those points. The vertical model line tool works very similarly to that. It will average the distance in the X and Y planes. So if we just drop some points around the outside for the external of this sign and use the horizontal model line on the top and bottom, you'll notice there I just picked the same point twice. That's okay, it's not a problem. There we go, just close that off. So if we go and have a look in Revit now, we should have the outline of the sign fairly roughly, and we can obviously join those lines up if we want to, because they're all in the same plane. But it's a very quick and easy way to draw using the VirtuSurv view if you want to, just to get a nice outline of an area or a profile that you're going to use. So if we have a look at possibly the 3D model line tool now, and we'll go and find something that we can show this tool off in, possibly the outside of this bay. Now the 3D tool obviously is not constrained in the horizontal or vertical plane, so we can do diagonal picks, and this is completely free form in 3D. So if I just select the outside of this bay, which is a fairly good example, and we just hide off the point cloud and go and find the model line we've just drawn. There we are, there it is. You can see just using the 3D picks we're able to draw the outline of that bay there. So if we wanted to extrude that profile or anything like that, we could use that as a basis. We also obviously have the arc, the option to create an arc with 3 points. So if we go and find the top of this opening with the arched head, now if we open up the model line command again and click 3 points to draw a model curve, so we can click the start, middle and end of this, just go and have a look at it in the 3D view, and there we are, there's our model line. So again, if we wanted to create an opening or something like that, we could use that as a guide to create our opening in Revit. We'll have a look at the construction points now, just to give you an idea of how to insert construction points. We can obviously, like I said, do this in the 3D view, or we can do this in the VirtuSurv view. I'm just going to unhide that category to bring in the so that you can see these construction points when they come in. There we go. So yeah, cut construction points, and we'll just navigate to that scan view again at the front, which is number 12. So I can just drop construction points in. Remember, point mode is quite important, and it's probably worth looking at the help menu to understand point mode. It gives a good overview of how it works, good graphical illustration. But we're just selecting specific points here now in the view, and these will be transferred into Revit. So we can use these for deforming shapes and topographic surfaces later down the line, which we'll come to in some of the later videos. There you can see we've got those there. But like I mentioned there, if we did want to do this just in the Revit view, we can do that. So just zoom in on this window, for example, we'll just select the top and bottom of the outline, and the points are going in just as they were when we selected the points in the VirtuSurv view.